Today on TimesCast, President Obama prepares to address the nation Monday night on America's role in the Libyan conflict as NATO takes the lead. And the U.S. maintains it has no plans to intervene in other conflicts in the Middle East, even as the situation in Syria escalates.
President Obama will announce tonight that the United States and its coalition has turned over command of the Libya military campaign to NATO.
Our goal is to help protect civilians and population center from attacks or that are the threat of under attack in Libya.
The U.S. will still be very much involved and indeed will still take a very large role in this, given the size of the U.S. military and the fact that the U.S. continues to play a lead role in NATO. But in terms of actually using cruise missiles, for example, or American fighter jets targeting tanks or artillery, the bulk of that will pass over to other NATO partners. What it means for the mission itself is not yet totally clear, but it may not mean as much as it might imply, since the purpose of the mission, which is to protect civilians and to attack Gaddafi's army whenever he attacks civilians, will remain unchanged. So the nature of the actual battle that's underway in Libya probably won't look much different. The one issue that may crop up in the coming days is that NATO, as a coalition of 28 countries, you'll have to satisfy all the members of NATO as to the nature and the conduct of the campaign. And there are some members of NATO, such as Turkey, that have expressed some reluctance about some forms of military engagement. So politically, it may be a slightly more unwieldy structure. But for the United States, it's very important to do this, as President Obama has promised from the outset that this would be a limited engagement and that the U.S. would hand over prime responsibility after a few days. What remains to be seen is how the operation plays out, particularly if it lasts for months or even through the end of the year, as Secretary Gates and Secretary Clinton suggested it might over the weekend.
Now, the no-fly zone and even the humanitarian side will have to be sustained for some period of time.
The longer it lasts, the longer it drags out, the more there's potential for dissent among the partners who are involved in it.
What we hope and expect is that there will be a cessation of violence and that there will be a peaceful solution to the crisis, a transition to democracy, which is what the people of Libya want.
And in Syria, it was another day of clashes between protesters and government forces in the border city of Deraa, where more than 60 people have been killed. Michael Slackman reports on why the U.S. is not planning on a military intervention.
I think the calculation was made that Colonel Gaddafi is pretty much gone. There's an international consensus to try to get him out. The opposite calculation is made regarding President Assad, that President Assad will survive this, and therefore it's not in the United States' interest to appear to come out too strongly against him. If you're looking for consistency in American foreign policy in the Middle East and North Africa, you're simply not going to find it at a time when nearly every country is experiencing some kind of upheaval, and the U.S. will look at each country depending on its interests in that country. That said, there's two main interests in Libya. One is humanitarian, which was stated by the government. The other is oil. Western Europe and the United States want the flow of oil to continue in Libya. Now in Syria, of course, the circumstances are quite different. There is no international consensus, and there certainly is no regional consensus for any kind of military intervention. The human rights aspect actually still exists. The Assad family has killed more Syrians, certainly over the last 40 years, than Muammar Gaddafi has in Libya. But the Syrian regime maintains the capacity to retaliate against U.S. interests as well as U.S. allies. So Israel could certainly face retaliation if there were any kind of military intervention. Syria is known to have one of the largest stockpiles of chemical and unconventional weapons in the Middle East, so we're talking there could be very serious repercussions.